The day I discovered my ex had bought a $3 million penthouse for his mistress was the day I reclaimed my power. He thought he could erase me, but I had access to every dollar in our joint account, $250,000 still sitting untouched. As he toasted their new life in a lavish skyline view, I quietly initiated a transfer to an account in my name. By noon, he was broke, his dreams shattered before they even began. My name is Elise, and I'll show him the true cost of betrayal. The moment I hit confirm on that transfer, I felt a rush of adrenaline mixed with a wave of guilt. It wasn't just the money that fueled my resolve. It was the sudden clarity that I was no longer a victim in my own story. I had taken control of something, anything, and it felt powerful. Yet, as I stared blankly at my computer screen, the reality of my actions began to sink in. What would happen next? Would this only escalate the conflict with Thomas? I didn't know, but I was determined to find out. I glanced at my phone, half expecting a call from Thomas, but the screen remained dark and silent. A part of me wanted to hear his confused voice demanding an explanation, while another part dreaded the confrontation that would inevitably come. Instead, I texted Rachel. She had been my anchor during this tumultuous time, a voice of reason amidst my swirling emotions. "Can we meet? I need to talk," I typed, my fingers shaking slightly as I pressed send. Almost immediately, my phone buzzed with a reply. "Of course, coffee at our spot?" I didn't need to think twice. Our favorite cafe was a cozy sanctuary where I could safely unpack my feelings. As I walked there, I felt a mixture of exhilaration and anxiety. Each step was a reminder that I had made a choice to prioritize myself and my future. But I also felt the heavy weight of motherhood on my shoulders, knowing Daniel was caught in the middle of this chaos. When I arrived, Rachel was already seated at a corner table, her bright smile immediately putting me at ease. She could sense my tension, her eyes narrowing with concern as I slid into the chair opposite her. "What's going on, Elise?" she asked, her voice low and soothing. I took a deep breath, recapping the whirlwind of events. "He bought a penthouse for her, Rachel. Can you believe it? I didn't even know they were that serious." Rachel shook her head in disbelief. "That's just, wow. What are you going to do?" "I transferred the money," I said, my voice almost a whisper. The admission felt like a confession, a secret I wasn't entirely sure I should share. Her expression shifted from surprise to admiration. "You did what? That's bold. What's the plan now?" "I honestly don't know. I just knew I had to do something to reclaim my power." I looked down at my coffee, swirling the dark liquid in the cup. "But I'm scared. I don't want to hurt Daniel or let this spiral out of control." Rachel reached across the table, her hand on mine. "You're not hurting Daniel by standing up for yourself. He needs to see you strong, especially now." Her words struck a chord within me. I had spent years suppressing my own desires, my own needs, in favor of keeping peace. But peace hadn't brought me happiness. It had suffocated me. "You're right," I said slowly, feeling the fire of conviction reignite within me. "I need to set boundaries. I won't let Thomas dictate how my life unfolds anymore." "Exactly," Rachel encouraged, "but you need a plan. Maybe we should think about how you can communicate this to him." The idea of confronting Thomas terrified me, but I knew she was right. If I truly wanted to assert my independence, I couldn't let fear dictate my actions. "I'll talk to him when he gets home tonight," I declared, surprising even myself with the firmness in my voice. "Good. And remember, you've got this. You're not alone in this fight," she reassured me. The conversation shifted to lighter topics, but I couldn't shake the looming confrontation with Thomas from my mind. As I returned home, my heart raced with uncertainty. What would I say? How would he react? Daniel was sitting on the couch, engrossed in his video game, blissfully unaware of the emotional storm brewing around him. I forced a smile as I settled down next to him, but my mind was elsewhere. "Hey, Mom," he said without looking up. "Can we go to the arcade this weekend?" "Sure, buddy," I replied, hoping to mask my inner turmoil. "I'd love to." The warmth of his affection reminded me of what was at stake. I had to navigate this transition without letting my son bear the brunt of our conflicts. That evening, I waited for Thomas to return home, the minutes stretching into an eternity. When he finally stepped through the door, a wave of mixed emotions washed over me. He looked different, more relaxed, as if he had left his troubles at the office. But the sight of him sent a rush of anger through me as I remembered the betrayal that had led us to this point. "Hey," he said, his voice casual. "How was your day?" "Can we talk?" I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. His brow furrowed slightly, a hint of concern clouding his features. "Sure, what's up?" We moved to the dining room, and I could feel my heart hammering in my chest. I took a deep breath, trying to summon the courage I'd felt earlier. "I know about the penthouse," I said, watching as his face shifted from casual to shocked. "What?" His voice was laced with disbelief. "It's time we have an honest conversation about our lives and what comes next for Daniel," I continued, determined to hold my ground. The moment had arrived, and I was ready to fight for my family's future, no matter the cost. I watched him process my words, his brow furrowing as he tried to piece together how I had come to learn such intimate details about his life. The silence that hung between us was thick with unspoken truths and unresolved feelings. I could see him grappling with the reality of his choices, the consequences of his actions spilling over into our conversations about Daniel. "Elise, he began, but I interrupted him, unwilling to let him deflect or downplay the situation. "No, Thomas, you don't get to brush this off. This isn't just about you anymore," I said, my voice steady despite the storm of emotions swirling inside me. "This affects our son. He deserves to know what's happening and how it impacts his world." It was surreal to confront him like this, to lay bare the raw hurt I had kept bottled up for so long, but I refused to allow his new life to overshadow my own, especially not in front of Daniel. "Do you even think about him?" I pressed, my heart racing as I stared into his eyes, hoping to find even a hint of the man I once knew. "Or is it all about the thrill of your new relationship?" I could see the defensiveness rising in him, the instinct to protect himself kicking in, but I wasn't interested in allowing him to play the victim in the scenario. I had been the one left shattered, picking up the pieces while he sauntered off into a seemingly perfect new life. "Of course I think about Daniel," he snapped, the tension palpable. "I'm still his father." The anger in his voice surprised me. It felt almost misplaced. Yes, he was Daniel's father, but his actions had shown a troubling disregard for the emotional stability of his son. I took a deep breath, allowing the hurt to transform into resolve. "If you care about Daniel, then you need to consider how your actions are affecting him," I replied, my tone calm but firm. "The penthouse, your relationship, these changes are monumental for him. You can't just expect everything to be fine because you're happy." I saw a flicker of understanding in his expression, and for a brief moment, I dared to hope that perhaps, just perhaps, he could recognize the complexity of the situation. "I never meant for things to get so complicated, Elise," he said, his voice softening. "I thought I was doing the right thing by trying to start over." I shook my head, frustration bubbling to the surface. "Starting over doesn't mean erasing our past or pretending that Daniel's feelings don't matter. He needs us both to be stable, not caught up in our own new lives." The weight of my words hung in the air, a challenge to his sense of responsibility. "I'm not asking for your forgiveness, not yet, but I need you to understand that I will do whatever it takes to protect our son," I continued, feeling the fire of determination reignite within me. "I control our finances for a reason, and if you think you can just waltz into this new relationship without considering the fallout, you're sorely mistaken." Thomas looked taken aback, his expression shifting from defensiveness to something resembling realization. "You're serious, aren't you?" he asked quietly, and I could see the wheels turning in his mind, grappling with the implications of my words. "What are you planning to do?" I'm planning to make sure Daniel knows he is loved and supported, no matter how your life changes, I replied, my voice steady. And if that means I need to take a more active role in guiding our financial situation to ensure his well-being, then that's what I'll do. You can't just build a new life and expect us to quietly accept it. I watched as he processed my words, the realization dawning on him that this was not just a fight over money or territory. This was about Daniel's emotional health and our responsibilities as parents. "So what's next?" he asked, his tone softening, almost seeking my guidance. I felt a surge of empowerment. "Next, we have a real conversation about co-parenting, how we can make this work for Daniel," I said, choosing to emphasize collaboration rather than conflict. "And we need to be transparent with him about everything, no more secrets." He nodded, though I could sense a lingering hesitation. "I'll do my best, but you know it's not easy for me either," he admitted. I could empathize with that, but I needed him to understand that my resolve was unwavering. Life isn't easy for any of us right now, Thomas, but we owe it to Daniel to figure this out together. As we talked, I felt a glimmer of hope that perhaps we could navigate this tumultuous landscape after all. It wouldn't be easy, but maybe, just maybe, we could carve out a space where our son felt secure and loved, regardless of the changes swirling around him. I needed to believe that, for both our sakes. Later, as I walked away from our conversation, I felt a mix of exhaustion and relief wash over me. Rachel had been right. Confronting Thomas was a necessary step, even if it felt daunting. I picked up my phone, eager to share the news with her. I texted, "I spoke to Thomas. It was tough. But I stood my ground. We need to talk about co-parenting." A few moments later, my phone buzzed with her reply. "You're amazing. Can't wait to hear all about it. Let's meet up soon." I smiled, grateful for her unwavering support. I realized that while the journey ahead would be filled with challenges, I wasn't alone. I could lean on my friends, my strength, and my determination to create a better future for Daniel. The sun began to set as I made my way home, and with each step, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. I might not have control over Thomas's choices, but I would reclaim my power and protect my family. I was no longer just a woman scorned. I was a mother ready to fight for her son. The story of our lives was still being written, and I intended to shape its direction with every fiber of my being. As I opened the door to my house, I braced myself for whatever might come next, ready to navigate the complexities of this new reality. No matter what challenges lay ahead, I knew I had the strength to face them head on. For anyone who's faced a similar journey, you're not alone. Remember, your story is still being written, and every day is a new opportunity to reclaim your narrative. Stay strong and subscribe for more stories of resilience and empowerment as we explore the twists and turns of life together. As I sat at my kitchen table, the weight of the world pressing down on my shoulders, I could hear the faint sounds of Daniel's laughter echoing from his room. The sound should have brought me comfort, a reminder of the joy he still held despite everything, but it only served to amplify my inner turmoil. How could I be the steady rock he needed when I felt so adrift? The penthouse was a glaring symbol of Thomas's new life, one that didn't include me or the dreams we once shared. It didn't matter that I was the one managing the finances. I felt as if I had lost control of everything that truly mattered. Rachel had been my lifeline during these tough days, often dropping by unannounced with takeout and a steady stream of comforting words. She had a knack for knowing when I needed company and when I simply required silence. Yesterday, as we sat surrounded by piles of takeout containers, she looked at me earnestly. "Elise, you need to focus on what you can control. He may have moved on, but you still have the power to shape your own future." Her voice held a reassuring firmness, and I could see the determination in her eyes. Yet, even her encouragement felt like a gentle push against my heavy heart, coaxing me to confront a truth I wasn't ready to face. Later that day, I decided to take a walk. The cool autumn air wrapped around me, refreshing and crisp, a stark contrast to the heat of my emotions. I meandered through the park, taking in the vibrant colors of the changing leaves, hoping to find some semblance of clarity amidst the chaos. The sight of children playing and families enjoying the day brought a bittersweet smile to my face. It reminded me of the times I had taken Daniel out to play, laughing together, completely oblivious to the fractures forming in our family. As I made my way back home, I spotted a couple nearby, their hands intertwined, lost in their own world. A surge of sadness washed over me. It was so easy to feel replaced and forgotten. I pushed those thoughts aside, reminding myself that I had built a life beyond Thomas. I had dreams, ambitions that I had put on hold while trying to nurture our family. The moment I stepped back through my front door, I resolved to reclaim not just my financial power, but also my sense of self. When I finally sat down with Daniel that evening, the conversation felt heavy but necessary. He was fiddling with his phone, his attention half on me and half on whatever was happening on the screen. "Mom, can we talk?" I finally ventured, my heart racing. He looked up, surprise flickering in his eyes. I could see the tension in his shoulders. He was aware of the emotional storm brewing around us, even if he preferred to avoid it. "Sure, what's up?" he replied, his voice tentative. "I know things have been a bit different lately, with your dad and everything." I watched his expression harden slightly. "I want you to know that it's okay to talk about how you're feeling." The silence stretched, thick and uncomfortable, but I held his gaze, hoping he would open up. "I don't know, Mom," he finally said, frustration creeping into his voice. "It just feels weird. Dad's happy, and I don't know how to be okay with that." His words hit me hard, a reminder that Daniel was navigating his own turmoil while I was wrapped up in my feelings. "I understand," I replied softly, my heart aching for him. "It's hard to see things change so fast, but I want you to know that you can talk to me anytime. You're not alone in this." He nodded, though uncertainty still lingered in his expression. I could see he wanted to believe me, to find comfort in my words, but I also knew that the emotions running through him were complicated. As we sat there in the fading light, I realized this was my moment to step up, not just for myself, but for him. I had to find a way to turn the tide, to show Daniel that it was possible to rise above the hurt and carve out our own happiness. The next day, I took a deep breath and decided to take the first step. I called Thomas. Hearing his voice again sent a shiver down my spine, a reminder of the love we had once shared and the hurt that had followed. "Thomas," I said, my voice steady despite the anxiety bubbling beneath the surface, "we need to talk about Daniel." There was a pause on the other end, and I could practically hear his thoughts racing. "Is everything okay?" he finally asked, concern lacing his tone. "We need to co-parent, effectively, for his sake," I replied, feeling a flicker of resolve. "I want us to be on the same page, especially now that you're moving forward." The conversation unfolded, and while it wasn't easy, we managed to navigate the complexities of our new relationship as co-parents. I felt a sense of empowerment as we discussed boundaries, responsibilities, and the importance of communication. Although I knew the path ahead would be fraught with challenges, I was determined to ensure Daniel felt secure amidst the changes. I hung up the phone with a sense of accomplishment, knowing I had taken a significant step toward reclaiming my life and my role as a mother. Rachel would be proud of me, I thought, a smile creeping onto my face as I envisioned sharing the news with her. That evening, as I sat down with Daniel to share my plans, I felt a sense of hope blossoming within me. Change was never easy, but I was ready to embrace it, to mold it into something beautiful for the sake of my son and myself. As I looked at him, I realized that together we could navigate this new reality, finding strength in each other and in our shared journey forward. The next morning, I woke up to the soft glow of sunlight streaming through my bedroom window. The world outside was alive with birds chirping and the scent of blooming flowers wafting in the air, but inside, my heart felt heavy. Thomas's new life, complete with a lavish penthouse and a younger girlfriend, loomed like a dark cloud over my thoughts. I had spent the night tossing and turning, contemplating the best way to break the news to Daniel. He deserved honesty, yet I feared how this information might affect him. After a quick shower and a cup of coffee that I barely tasted, I summoned Rachel, who had already promised to be my sounding board. When she arrived, the concern etched on her face was evident. "You look like you haven't slept," she observed, wrapping her arms around me in a comforting embrace. I needed her support, especially now. As we settled into the cozy nook of my living room, I confided in her about my fears. What if he reacts poorly? What if he feels he has to choose sides? I asked, my voice trembling with uncertainty. Rachel took a deep breath, her eyes thoughtful. "You know, Elise, kids are surprisingly resilient. As long as you're honest with him and reassure him that it's okay to love both of you, he'll find a way through this." I appreciated her perspective, even if it didn't completely quell the anxiety simmering in my chest. With a nod of understanding, I decided to take her advice to heart. The time to speak with Daniel was now. Later that evening, after dinner, I found Daniel sitting at the kitchen table, headphones on, engrossed in his homework. The sight of him brought a wave of warmth, but also reminded me of the complexity of our situation. I gently pulled the headphones down and looked into his eyes. "Can we talk for a minute?" I asked, my heart racing. He hesitated, then nodded, curiosity replacing the earlier concentration on his studies. "What's up?" he replied, his expression shifting to one of concern. I took a deep breath, searching for the right words that would convey the situation without burdening him too much. "I need to tell you something about your dad," I began, feeling the weight of my words settle between us. As I explained Thomas's new relationship and the penthouse, I watched Daniel's face shift through a range of emotions: surprise, confusion, and eventually a touch of sadness. I kept my tone steady, emphasizing that this wasn't a reflection on his value or love. "This isn't your fault, and you can still love both of us. It's important to remember that," I reassured him. For a moment, he was silent, processing the information. Finally, he spoke, his voice low. "I can't believe he'd do that, Mom." There was a hurt in his words that pierced my heart. "It feels unfair." I nodded, fully understanding the turmoil he was feeling. "It is unfair, and it's okay to feel that way. Just know that I'm here for you, no matter what," I said, hoping to provide him with the comfort he needed. Daniel took a moment, then looked at me with a mixture of determination and sadness. "I don't want to choose between you and him." I could see the fear in his eyes, and it made my own heart ache. I reached across the table, holding his hand tightly. "You won't have to. You're allowed to love your dad and also be upset about what he's done," I affirmed, feeling my resolve strengthen. After our conversation, Daniel seemed quieter than usual, his mind racing with thoughts I couldn't quite reach. I respected his need for space, but was also aware that I had to ensure he felt safe in expressing his feelings. The next few days were filled with a delicate balance of maintaining our routine while allowing Daniel to process everything. We watched movies, cooked together, and shared more moments that reminded us of our bond. Rachel remained a steadfast presence during this time, often checking in on us. One afternoon, as we prepared lunch, she gave me a conspiratorial smile and said, "You're doing a great job, Elise. Just remember, you're not alone in this." Her words resonated deeply, reminding me that I had my own support system, even if I often felt isolated in my struggles. A week passed, and Daniel began to open up more about his feelings. One evening, as we were wrapping up dinner, he suddenly blurted out, "Can we talk about Dad again?" My heart sank slightly, but I welcomed the opportunity for dialogue. "Of course," I said, motioning for him to continue. "What's on your mind?" He hesitated for a moment, his gaze fixed on his plate. "I just don't understand why he chose to be with her instead of trying to fix things with you," he admitted, the hurt evident in his voice. It was a question I had often asked myself, one that still lingered in my own mind. Sometimes people make choices based on what they think will make them happy, but that doesn't always mean it's the right choice, I replied gently, choosing my words carefully. Daniel nodded slowly, absorbing my response. I just want to know if he still cares about us, he said, his vulnerability laying bare in front of me. I took a deep breath, ready to offer reassurance. He does care, but sometimes love looks different than we expect. No matter what happens between your dad and me, I'll always be here for you, I promised, willing to fight for my son's understanding and security. As the days turned into weeks, I began to realize that while the sting of betrayal was still fresh, it no longer defined me. I was learning how to reclaim my power and forge a new path for myself and Daniel, one that emphasized our love and resilience. Each day presented new challenges, but together we were facing them with renewed strength. With a newfound sense of determination, I focused on what truly mattered, Daniel's well-being. Every morning, I watched him as he navigated the complexities of teenage life, his humor and resilience reminding me of all the good in the world, even amidst my own struggles. I made it a point to create a stable and nurturing environment at home. We spent evenings cooking together, experimenting with new recipes, and laughing at our culinary disasters. I cherished these moments, knowing how vital they were for both of us as we adjusted to our new reality. One weekend, I decided to invite Rachel over for a girls' night, hoping to lighten the mood with some laughter and honest conversation. We spread out blankets in the living room and prepared a feast of popcorn and homemade nachos. As we settled into our cozy fort, I felt a wave of comfort wash over me. Rachel always knew how to make me laugh, and tonight was no exception. Between her witty commentary on reality TV and her playful teasing about my love life, I found myself slowly peeling away the layers of sadness that had cocooned me. "Have you thought about dating again?" Rachel asked, her tone casual yet probing. I hesitated, feeling the weight of her question. "I don't know, Rachel. Right now, I feel like I'm still figuring out who I am post-Thomas," I replied, my voice tinged with uncertainty. The thought of stepping back into the dating world felt overwhelming. I wasn't sure I was ready to trust anyone again. "You're an amazing woman, Elise. Your heart is still capable of so much love," she reassured me, her sincerity penetrating my doubts. As we chatted, I noticed the flickering light of hope beginning to glow within me, an ember waiting to catch fire. The following week, Thomas called me unexpectedly. My heart raced as I answered. "We need to talk about Daniel," he said, his tone businesslike. I felt a mix of anxiety and anger, but forced myself to remain calm. "What about him?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "I've got plans for him this weekend, and I'd like to take him to the new penthouse. It's a big deal for me, and I want him to see it," he stated, clearly excited. The news hit me like a punch to the gut. I envisioned Daniel surrounded by the glossy decor and the younger woman who now occupied a significant part of Thomas's life. "I don't think that's a good idea," I replied, my voice firm. "He needs stability, not to be thrown into your new life like some sort of trophy." There was silence on the other end, a tension hanging between us like a thick fog. After what felt like an eternity, Thomas finally spoke, his tone softer. "I just want him to be happy, Elise. I thought you would understand." I wanted to scream that I did understand, that I wanted Daniel to be happy above all else. But I also wanted to protect him from this new reality that felt so foreign. "Daniel is still processing everything, Thomas. Let's not rush him into a situation he might not be ready for," I said, hoping to appeal to whatever was left of our shared parenting goals. "I'll think about it," he muttered before hanging up. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. That night, I sat down with Daniel. His expression was serious, and I could see the wheels turning in his mind as he tried to reconcile the life he once knew with the chaos around him. "Dad mentioned his new place," he said quietly. I felt a pang of worry wash over me. "What do you think about it?" I asked, eager to understand his feelings. He shrugged, a gesture heavy with teenage frustration. I don't know. I guess it's cool, but it feels weird. I mean, he just moved on so fast. I nodded, feeling the same confusion swirling inside me. It's okay to feel that way. It's a lot to take in, I assured him, grateful that he felt comfortable enough to share his thoughts. We spent the rest of the evening talking about his interests, dreams, and the things that truly mattered to him. As I listened, I realized that despite the turmoil in our lives, our bond was growing stronger. I promised him that whatever happened next, we would face it together as a team. That night, as he headed to bed, I felt a flicker of hope emerge once more. Rachel and I had a long chat the next day about the conversation I had with Daniel. You're doing an amazing job, Elise. Just remember, it's okay to lean on others too, she encouraged me. I took her words to heart, vowing to not only be there for my son, but to also reach out to my support system when I needed it. The idea of confronting Thomas about his plans weighed heavily on me, yet I knew it had to happen. I couldn't let him bulldoze through our lives without considering the impact on Daniel. Gathering my thoughts, I decided to approach him with clarity and confidence, ready to communicate my concerns. My heart raced as I formulated my arguments, imagining how I would present my case. Later that week, I scheduled a meeting with Thomas at a cafe, neutral territory where emotions could be contained. As I arrived, I spotted him sitting at a small table, tapping his fingers impatiently. When he saw me, a flicker of surprise crossed his face, but it quickly morphed into a guarded expression. I took a deep breath before sitting down, determined to remain composed. We need to talk about Daniel and your plans, I began, my voice steady, ready to reclaim my role as his mother and advocate. The conversation that followed would challenge me in ways I hadn't anticipated, but I knew that whatever the outcome, I was prepared to fight for my son's happiness. As we spoke, I felt the weight of the past start to lift, revealing a path forward filled with possibilities I had once thought were out of reach. In that moment, I knew I was not only reclaiming my power, but also paving the way for a future that honored my strength and love for Daniel. If you've ever faced a similar challenge in your life, navigating relationships or the emotional roller coaster of betrayal, I invite you to share your story. We all have experiences that shape us, and connecting through our journeys can offer healing and understanding. As I sat on my couch, the weight of the decisions I had made settled around me like a heavy blanket. The sun dipped low on the horizon, casting a warm golden glow throughout the room, but I felt neither warmth nor comfort. Instead, I stared blankly at the wall, contemplating my next move, unsure of how to fully embrace my new reality. Thomas might have thought he had moved on, but I was ready to show him that I was not just a footnote in his story. It was time to carve out my own narrative, one that didn't revolve around his choices or his new life. I picked up my phone and scrolled through the contacts until I found Rachel's name. She always seemed to know what to say. With a quick tap, I sent her a text. "Can you come over? I need to talk." I didn't have to wait long before she replied. "Of course. Be there in 10. I put the phone down, heart racing a little at the thought of sharing everything. It was one thing to think about reclaiming my power, but another entirely to voice those thoughts aloud. When Rachel arrived, I could see the concern etched on her face. She had been my confidant through all the ups and downs of my marriage. As she stepped into my living room, the warmth she radiated felt like an embrace. "What's going on, Elise? You seem a bit off," she said, her voice soft but steady. I motioned for her to sit down, taking a deep breath before launching into the whirlwind of my feelings. "I found out Thomas bought a penthouse for his girlfriend," I said, the words tasting bitter as they left my lips. "I don't know why it hurts so much, but it does. I feel like I'm losing everything all over again." The moment I said it, tears welled in my eyes, threatening to spill over. I blinked hard, willing them back. Rachel reached out, her hand resting gently on mine. "Of course it hurts. You invested so much in that marriage, and seeing him move on so easily feels like a slap in the face. But you're strong, Elise. You're more than just his ex-wife." Her words were like a balm, soothing the sharp edges of my pain. I nodded, knowing deep down she was right, but the emotional turbulence roared within me, threatening to drown out her encouragement. "Maybe I should confront him," I suggested, my voice trembling slightly. "Tell him I know what he's doing and how it makes me feel." Rachel shook her head, a soft smile creeping onto her face. "Confronting him won't change anything. You need to focus on yourself and Daniel. Show them that you're not just sitting around, waiting for a handout." Her perspective lit a spark of determination within me, igniting a fire I had almost forgotten existed. As the evening wore on, Rachel and I plotted. We talked about how I could take control of my life, not just financially, but emotionally as well. I had always been the one to manage our household finances, and in some ways, that had given me a sense of stability and security. I realize now that those skills could be redirected towards my future, crafting a life for Daniel and me that thrived independently of Thomas's choices. Rachel suggested I consider investing in a small business. "You've always talked about how you love to decorate and organize. Why not turn that into something? Help others create beautiful spaces. You can be your own boss," she encouraged. The more she spoke, the more excited I became. It felt good to dream again, to envision a future that was not tied to my past with Thomas. As I lay in bed that night, I thought about Daniel. He was my anchor, my reason for fighting through this storm. I wanted him to see me as a woman who took charge of her life, instead of one who crumbled under pressure. My heart swelled with love and resolve, reminding me that I was not just surviving, I was thriving in the face of adversity. My thoughts drifted to the conversation I would have with him in the morning, and how I would reassure him that no matter what happened between Thomas and me, he was the most important part of my life. The next day dawned bright and clear, a stark contrast to my swirling emotions. I brewed a fresh pot of coffee, the rich aroma filling the air as I gathered my thoughts. I needed to find a balance between acknowledging my feelings and supporting Daniel through this transition. As I sat down at the kitchen table, he stumbled in, hair tousled and eyes still sleepy. "Morning, Mom," he mumbled, rubbing his eyes. I smiled, the warmth of my love for him enveloping me. "Hey, Betty, I wanted to talk to you about something important," I said, my voice steady as I pushed a plate of toast towards him. Daniel looked up, curiosity piqued, and I took a moment to gather my thoughts. "I know things have been a bit rocky with your dad and me lately, but I want you to know that I'm here for you, always." He nodded, his expression serious. I continued, "You don't have to choose sides. You can love your dad and me equally, and we'll work through this as a family." I could see the tension in his shoulders ease, his youthful features softening. "I just want everything to be okay," he admitted, and my heart ached for him. I reached across the table to hold his hand, grounding him as much as myself. "It will be, Daniel. We're going to make it through this, I promise." As he finished his toast, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. I wouldn't let the shadows of betrayal shroud my relationship with my son or my future. Together, we would navigate this new path, one that would ultimately lead us to brighter horizons, filled with hope and possibility.